The human mind is a very interesting thing. The default setting is it's looking for what is not working, it looks for why things can't work. If you don't discipline it to do certain things, it's just not going to do that. One of the thoughts that challenged me the most and put me in a position where things I could have accomplished in 3 months maybe took me years to accomplish was this thought: it's not working. It's not working. I can think of times where I got on stage and I held back from presenting the way I could because I was like, man, it's not working. I know times when I could have gone out to be more visible for my business, shown up on social media, done lives, all of those things, where I held myself back because of this thought: it's not working. I know of times where I got really annoyed with team members. And yes, there are some things that they could have done that they weren't doing, all those things. But the real thing behind all of that was this thought: it's not working. What I'm doing for my business is not working. The marketing, the selling, the leading the team, the figuring out the finances. And then this is just at baseline. But on top of it, then certain things would go wrong. Maybe something wrong with the system, or somebody, a team member functioned in a certain way, or a launch that didn't do as well as I expected it to, or having less patience for a few days in a row than I wanted to. And it would then make that thought so much louder, like, it is not working. And it is one of the most disabling thoughts. It is so far from an empowering thought. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with reality. Now, I am currently in a time where this is not a thought that stops me anymore for the most part. And I have a saying, and I say it all the time in the EntreMD Business School. I say it's working. It's always working. Okay. It's always working. For those of you using the 20% coach journal, you'll see it in there. It's working. It's always working. And that's what I choose instead of that thought. But I'm going to walk you through that process. And I would think I want to start off by saying that if you find yourself in a position where maybe you wanted to hit a milestone and you didn't hit it, you had a revenue goal and you didn't hit it, or you had a launch and you wanted to welcome a certain number of clients and you didn't, you had a month in your cash pay practice where you're like, I'm going to get X number of patients and you didn't, you brought on a new EHR or whatever, a billing system, and you're like, yes, this is the thing that's going to make a huge difference in my practice, and it didn't. I want to invite you to tell you, for me, most of the things that I have set as goals, like many of them I never hit. I mean, they're still ongoing. I'm still, going after them. I don't let that stop me. Like, I don't let that stop me at all. Now, in spite of that, right, we've done so much. So it's not as though we're not moving forward. It's not as though we're not moving forward significantly, but I don't sweat it. Okay, let me walk you through my process. This is a 6-part process that I use to overcome this thought. And again, why is this important? Because it will stop you. It will stop you from showing up. It will stop you from showing up at a higher level. It will make you sabotage yourself all the time. And it'll put you in a place where you'll be very hard to collaborate with. And that is where whether you're collaborating with people external to your company, you're collaborating with people in your company, like your team members and all of that stuff, because you are going to be in a state of frustration. Like, that's just where you're going to live. And for me, I'm like, I'm really at a point in my life where I want to make sure that what I'm doing is what I want to do, and the life I'm living is the life I want to live. I definitely do not want to walk around with an underlying sense of frustration. That's just too much, way too much. Okay. All right. So let's look at this 6-part series. And the first thing I do when this thought comes, like it's not working, or rather a habit I have that prevents me from falling apart when that thought shows up, is this habit of doing a 12 to 3-year review. Okay. And it could be 5 years, 10 years, whatever, but at least 12 months to 3-year review. Okay. It's a review. So it's looking backwards. Okay. And so when I do that, what I'm looking for is all the things that I thought were not working that have worked, all the things that took a little longer, but they played out exactly the way they were supposed to play out, all the things that I stressed out about. And now I'm like, yeah, knowing what I now know, I wouldn't have bothered with all of that. And really what that is me pulling from the wisdom of my experience to then use that wisdom to have a better experience this time. Right. And so, for instance, we had a time where we were going to buy our medical building, right? Like, so we started off, leasing a space. It was about 3 exam rooms. So it was perfect for when we started. We're able to keep our overhead low and not deal with any financial pressure and stuff like that. And so we started it there, and it's a building with 4 complexes. So we started off there, and then as we grew, we needed more space, right? Obviously, we outgrew that space, and there was an OBGYN who was in a different suite that had 6 exam rooms. And this OBGYN had just moved out. And so we moved into that space and we leased that space. And then we got to this place where we're like, okay, well, we're going to need a place, right? But we're going to need our own place. And we started looking to purchase our own building and things like that. Finally, my husband just got this nudge to go ask the owner of our building if he will sell the building, like if he was looking into selling the building, which is very odd because he owned a private practice within that space as well. And so we approached him, and after a number of conversations, turned out that he was open to selling it and all. And, so we started those conversations. And it was some ridiculously long amount of time. It was like, it's not working. So what are we going to do? Our lease is going to run out, blah, blah, blah. There are all these things going on. And at the end of the day, we finally were able to close on the building. We acquired the building only to find out. Okay. So we found this out like close to the time we closed on the building, that the reason for the delay was the owner of the building was selling his building to the hospital, and he wanted to secure a 5-year lease before he sold it to us. For us, we were like, this is a delay. But what it did was, instead of giving us a building and then we would have this huge vacant space, because that was the biggest suite, we had that and we had a 5-year lease with the hospital, right? And so did that seem like a delay? Did it seem like things were not working fast enough and all of those things? Yes. Did it work out for us? Royally. Like royally. And, that's just a reminder, like at the end of the day, it's always working. Like our part is to do our part and do our part, to the best of our abilities, but it's always working. I've had a time like, when we first opened the EntreMD Business School. So this was 5 years ago. And after we had a whole event, we had EntreMD Live. I told everybody about the school and all of these things. On day one, we had 2 people join the school, like 1, 2. I was like, oh my goodness, like that's, and I was in such shock. I was like, this makes no sense. I remember, feeling like there was some embarrassment there. Like you just did a thing and you told people how to sell and how to market, and you could only sell 2 people into this stuff. But our cart was open for about 7 days, thereabout. And the next day, then nobody joined. And after that, maybe 1 person joined, and all of those things. And I kept going and kept going, like full speed ahead and stuff like that. And we ended up with 22 doctors the first time we opened the school. And so I remember that. You know what I mean? I go back, I review, I remember that. And so if I'm in a place where I have 2 people, it doesn't mean I can't have 22 people, right? Because it's always working. But if I stop showing up, then it's definitely not going to work, right? We've had times where in my private practice, we've had, that when the Great Resignation happened, it was becoming a challenge to have people who would work and, people who would do good work, people who would stay longer than 2 weeks. I mean, we had people who would even want to be interviewed and not show up for the interview, or they'd show up to work and they work for 1 day in the morning and then not come back, after lunch. And it was all kinds of stuff, but I remember that's when we built out our own training system and started training, like pre-meds and pre-PA and all of those things. And those became our MAs. And then we just have this pipeline, and that's a historical fact, right? And so at the end of the day, it's all working. It's always working. If it's not working for me, it's working on me. If it's not working right now, it's still working. And, when it plays out, it will make up for the quote unquote time lost. And so that's what a review does. And we all have these stories, right? And so I try to look back a year to 3 years and then just pull up these things of times when I thought it wasn't working, but it turns out that it was working for me in the best possible way. Okay. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do, and I train all my clients to do this, is I practice radical gratitude. Because the human mind is a very interesting thing. The default setting is it's looking for what is not working. It looks for why things can't work and all of those things. And so if you don't discipline it to do certain things, it's just not going to do them, right? And so for me in my business, I may have this target, like I want to have 100 new clients or whatever. And then 2 people come in and it's like, what is 2, when compared to 100? But I've learned to stop doing that. And I've learned to be so grateful for the 2. And I've learned to be so grateful for the clients I do have. I learned to be so grateful for the team members that I have. I've learned to be so grateful for, the people who listen to the podcast, or the people who are commenting on the Facebook group, and the wins that we've had, and, the Inc. 5000 that we hit. And like, I just practice being grateful for all of it and practice it daily, because when I do that, then it reminds me that it's always working, right? Because there's always something to be grateful for. So it's always working. Okay. And so even when I have calls in the EntreMD business school, we start those off with gratitude. Like it's first of all, like, like what wins do we have? Let's celebrate some wins and all that. And we start from there. And it's a reminder, right? One of the slogans that you always hear in EntreMD business school is always working. Someone go like, yeah, this is where it was, and this is what I was thinking, and this is how hard it was for me. And look at how it's playing out now. It's always working. And then even in the profitable private practice movements, which if you're in private practice and you're not part of it, come join us, right? This is where we show up every Thursday to work on our businesses, and private practice docs are just winning. Okay. And where do we start from? We start from wins. Like, so between the last week and now, what's going on? Right. Again, it's a reminder to the people sharing the wins that it's always working. And it's a reminder to the entire community that it's always working. So that's the second thing. The third thing is that I've learned to value process and outcome goals, like both of them, and to see them as super powerful and celebrate them both. So I'll explain what I mean by that. An outcome goal could be like, we did 7 figures in revenue this year. Okay. A process goal could be something like we were very diligent and, for my private practice, we hit the recaller twice a week the entire year. And what that means is that we're putting ourselves in a position where we're constantly talking to people about, with their overdue for appointments, getting them in, getting them scheduled, getting all of that stuff. A process win could look like I hired a practice administrator. Like I haven't had a practice manager for my office and I hired one. And I went through that process now. So immediately there's no direct outcome. That is what sets me up to have more impacts, more time freedom, more financial freedom. Okay. A process goal could look like, it could be something challenging where you're like, okay, I need to do something to make sure I'm getting paid for all the work I do. And I realize that my billing company is just not the company to take me there. I need to change billers. Now, changing billers is a painful process, right? Because you have to put all, like all the documentation you have to put together. You have to interview these people. You have to deal with the fear of what if this person is worse than the people I just had. You have to deal with the downtime and cash flow. The chances are there will be some downtime and cash flow and all of those things. And so when you do it immediately, you may not, the immediate result is actually cash flow is a little less, not that it's more, but you're setting yourself up for it to potentially be a lot more. And so if I bring on a billing company, I'm celebrating that. If we're consistent with a system in the business, I'm celebrating that. If we are marketing consistently, I'm celebrating that. Like I'm celebrating the process as much as I'm celebrating the goal, because sometimes the process is thankless and it is followed by pain, not a breakthrough in the beginning, right? And so I've learned to value them both. And so I do that with my clients as well. And so when they do these difficult hires or they make these difficult process changes and all of those things, which we know are going to make their practices better or their businesses better, we celebrate those. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, I give myself the gift of a brutally honest audit. And when I say brutally honest, I don't mean I judge myself, right? I observe, I don't judge, but I don't lie to myself. It's so easy to lie to yourself. And the problem with lying to yourself as an entrepreneur is that those lies will cost you progress. They'll cost you your peace. They will cost you great results you can get. They'll cost you team members. They'll cost you all kinds of stuff. So it's just not worth it to do at all. Okay. So the gift of brutally honest audit. Okay. And so for instance, if I'm thinking it's not working because I'm not hitting my revenue targets, I have to go back and say, okay, did I actually define the pathway to hitting that goal? Because if I didn't, I wasn't really serious about hitting that goal. So what did I say? Did I break it down? This is the number of clients I'll need, based on our track record. This is what we can do to bring in those clients, and I'm showing up and executing them. You see what I'm saying? So did I develop a pathway? Did I work the pathway? Did I work the pathway in enough volume? Did I reach out for help? Did I, you know what I mean? Like, because it's easy to go like, oh, nothing's working. It's another thing to audit and say, okay, self, let's take a look at what exactly is going on here, right? And so I give myself the gift of that. And I call it a gift. It is emotionally, it's not something we would necessarily like to do, but it's what is required for the business to thrive. And so I would do that. And so I can say, well, it could work. Like, this is totally workable. I just haven't worked it yet, right? And I would go further to ask myself, like, why haven't you worked it? And what can we do to audit that? That's a whole different conversation. But, it's like, is it because I'm setting it up not to work? And this is not a blanket, well, it must be me, I'm the problem type of thing. So you actually taking the time to sit and do an honest audit and to see, is it me, right? And is there something I can do differently and all of that? Okay. The 5th thing I do is I constantly stay abreast of world-class working strategies. Okay, so the energy I used to say it's not working, and I stay in analysis paralysis and I'm doing nothing, I'm frustrated, all of those things is the same amount of energy that I could use to go and say, okay, there are people who are winning at this. What are they doing? Do they have books? Do they have a program? Do they have whatever? Or maybe I'm already in a program, but I'm not leaning into it. I'm like, okay, self, this is not helping you at all. Maybe I'm not raising my hand to ask questions because I don't want to feel like I don't know what I'm doing. The ego is not serving us at all. Right. And so I would just lean in to get a world-class education. Well, when I say education, I don't mean certificate. Oh my goodness, that's not what I mean. What I mean is I want to make sure that I understand the best practices for getting the result that I want to get. And I make sure that I have that information, right? And so I would constantly stay abreast of those. So I'm always looking at what's working for marketing or for selling or for leading the team and all of those kind of stuff. And of course, for me, is a little more than just my own businesses. I'm responsible for hundreds and hundreds of physician entrepreneurs and thousands if you include our workshops and the podcast and stuff like that. And I cannot afford to not know. Like it's too expensive, right? Okay. I call out the lies, okay, by doing this 1 to 3 year review. I practice daily radical gratitude. I value process and outcome goals. I give myself the gift of brutally honest audit, and I continue to stay abreast of world-class working strategies. Okay. And then finally, what I do is I just flip the narrative, right? Like it's working even better than I can imagine. And doing that 1 to 2 year review puts me in a position to say that, like, honestly, it's working even better than I imagined. Is working even better than I imagined. And if there are things I need to fix, I've owned it, I fixed it, and we can keep it moving. Right. And so it's working even better than I imagined. It's working even better than I can imagine. It's working even better than I can imagine. And instead of letting it's not working keep running in my mind, this is what I then let run in my mind. Right. That's the way I have put myself in a position where I don't let it's not working stop me. I actually don't believe it's not working. I believe all work works. And doing this work over time has brought me to this place where all work works. All work works. It's all working. Everything is working. Right. And so if you think about the purpose of the thought is not working, like what is the purpose is to stop you from working? What is the thing that is guaranteed not to work, not working? Right. So if I am not working on my marketing, for instance, because I put out a number of things and I'm like, this is not working, and then I stop altogether, that is guaranteed not to work. Right? That is guaranteed not to work. So I just don't do that anymore. I think it's a very dangerous thought. I think it's a thought that creates paralysis for physician entrepreneurs. And it's a thought that keeps us the same week to week, month to month, year to year, where we may get a little better, but we're not getting radically better because we're too scared to go out there and go all out because at the back of our mind is this thought, it's not working. So I want to invite you to do these things. Okay. I want to invite you to do this thing. I want to invite you to practice radical gratitude. I want you to practice owning the thought is working even better than I can imagine. It's working even better than I can imagine. And if you look all through your life, you'll see so many examples. If you look through all the life cycle of your business, you see so many examples of exactly this. Okay. All right. So I want you to go practice this. I want you to get a few friends together. I want you to write these 6 things down and you guys practice and kind of work it with one area where it shows up for you a lot. And so maybe it's not working, shows up a lot for you with team, whether that's hiring them, whether it's leading them, training them, holding them to higher levels. Maybe it's showing up, like with your revenue targets that you're not hitting. Maybe it shows up when you go out to be visible. That's a big one that comes up for people. And you would just want to take that thing and work this process, just work this process. And then come to this point where you're like, you know what? It's working even better than I can imagine. And then you go all out. Listen, you're a physician entrepreneur. Your business is so important because of all the lives you can change. It's so important because your own life will change because of the time and financial freedom. And it's so important because in the physician community, we just do not have enough examples of what is possible. So to have you winning as an entrepreneur changes everything for the community. It changes everything. Okay, so I want to invite you to embrace this. I want to invite you to rise above this thought. That thought is like, it's a bad guy. It's like a terrorist. It's a bad guy. Trying to stop you from doing stuff, and just don't let it anymore. And every time you think it's not working, just start thinking it's working even better than I can imagine. Okay. I'm rooting for you as always. As always. And if this episode helped you, send me a DM or PM and say, let me know how it helped you. And if you have follow-up questions, send them to me. And I might just make an episode just for you. Rooting for you always. See you on the next episode.